Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, October 1st. The month is over. We made it to rank 18 on our main account, which is nice. I've already opened all of these just because of checking the daily quests for the European and Asian account, so these tiny rewards you get for being at rank 18, still not great. Like, if you end a month at rank 20, you might get 5 dust. At rank 18, you can see I got 15. And then you get like 1 gold card. And I guess at a certain point, if no new content was ever added to Hearthstone, there would be this system where just every month, as long as you make it to at least rank 20, you would get 1 gold card, and then that would eventually push everybody into having like 1 new like 1 complete set of golden cards for everything. But you're probably talking with just the vast number of cards that are available, and since you're only getting 1 copy of it, it'd be like 500 months. It would be an entire lifetime. So only some kind of AI or computer would be able to do it, and frankly Hearthstone servers probably wouldn't stay up anywhere close to that long. So I don't know what the ultimate idea there is as far as giving us 1 gold card. It's just a little taste to try to get more people to buy packs to gamble for those very low percentage chance of getting gold cards. Let's see, so we've got play 40 even cost cards, play a priest or warlock, and deal damage to the hero. And we don't have a tavern brawl, so that makes everything work pretty well. So we could do, let's see, it was priest or warlock should be our first focus. So we could do zoo warlock. I haven't done that in a while. We need to get back up to rank. We're down to rank 22. We've got quite a lot of news because there was games that were left over from Friday. But as far as the weekend happened, last week the Wednesday stream didn't happen because of electrical problems. On the weekend there was yet another electrical issue, so 3 different times electricians had to come to my house and fix something. It was all related, really, very related issues of an initial amount of fire in an outlet, probably because the outlet wasn't installed properly, in the sense that it wasn't an outdoor outlet that was actually outdoors, and it didn't have probably the right kind of insulation on it, and that fire in the outlet then ended up frying basically 80% of all the components of the entire house's wiring, and all of that needed being replaced. And then when everything is replaced with new equipment, there's this higher, better voltage coming out to the rest of the wiring, and so now that there's higher, better voltage coming out to the rest of the wiring, it reveals that, oh yes, there's some other places that were not done right, and thus now that they're getting the higher voltage, they're heating up and melting themselves and about to start on fire too. And then in the process of that, the electricians made a understandable mistake that messed up my dryer outlet plug, because dryers use instead of 120 volts, they use 240 volts, or to be more accurate, they use 2 phases of 120 volts. So in AC current, it's not always a positive 120 volts that's coming out of the outlet. It's 120 volts and then 60 times a second at 60 hertz. It changes from that 120 volts down to negative 120 volts. The reason for this is that's just how generators work. So when you're using 2 phases of 120 volts AC, they have to be out of phase or in phase. I'm not sure which would actually be the right terminology. So the idea there is at the exact same point at which one of the 120 volts is positive 120 volts, the other 120 volts has to also be positive 120 volts, so it equals 240 volts. Or it can be, that would be if it was in, because if you do it the other way, and I'm probably not explaining this greatly, if at the exact same time one line is positive 120 volts and the other one is negative 120 volts, guess what? They cancel each other out, and then you have 0 volts. Voltage is relative to the ground, and even though you have great extremes there, they just balance each other out. And so if you, when plugging in a circuit breaker for a dryer outlet, you have to make sure that it plugs in certain slots of the circuit breaker panel. Otherwise, it will be plugged into the wrong place. And that's exactly what happened. And oddly, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened when they first installed the outlet when I first moved into my house. And it causes your, in my case with my dryer, it causes it to spin just fine, but it doesn't move the timer forward or ever heat up. So for almost an entire day, we had a dryer just spinning around, wasting electricity, causing more of an expense than an electricity bill, I'm sure.
It's playtime.
And in that whole mess, with power going off and on, I had to find a point where I could go to the grocery store and buy food and make sure that food didn't end up sitting too long in the refrigerator that would have been unpowered. So that was my weekend. Sadly, that's a very long story to get around to saying I didn't play any Borderlands 2. There's like nothing here. So I think I'm just gonna have to keep hitting this guy. But I do intend to get back to Borderlands 2. Also, I've recognized, or I'm guessing, at least, that due to allergies, I've gotten an ear infection. Ear infections, or just swimmer's ear in particular, are very common for people who wear headphones. Guess what? Being a YouTuber, I'm wearing headphones quite a lot. So yet another issue of just pain and trying to deal with that, which is no fun. And yes, hurting my hand has hurting my hand trying to cut off bolts to build a box to hold a Raspberry Pi that I was building. I've bruised a bone or something, and it doesn't feel like at this point, now that it's been a week, doesn't feel like that's going to heal, so I'm going to have to put that entire project just on the back burner, because I'm not going to get back to it. I've come to realize it, which is a shame because I wanted it to be done by the end of this month, but it's not going to happen. Also, in a strange coincidence, I've been doing Lego Dimensions because it's a series that they're clearancing out every now and then. Lego Telltale Games is done with it, but then a lot of the sets are still pretty expensive. They were always very expensive. I've been doing the sets, and I really had no intention of ever playing the game, but I did turn on my my old Xbox 360 and plug it in and put in the disc and see what happens, and turns out that I probably should. I'm gonna have to play just the first level of it to get to the point where I can take all of the vehicles in Lego Dimensions and just save their data. The game actually kind of sucks, and it's very much designed that you would get the starter kit and play the starter kit and not buy any extra stuff. Whereas I think it clearly should have been more accessible, that you, regardless of what character or vehicle you played with, there should have been something written on each tag. It would, even in the sets where you have two vehicle tags that look exactly the same, you could have written a code to say, alright, well, this is either one of the 3 iterations, because the vehicles can be built in 3 different ways, of vehicle 1, or it's one of the 3 iterations of vehicle 2, and you should be able to tap those onto the RFID reader immediately in the game and at any point very early, and then it should say, hey, what do you want to build, and give you the instructions, and you should have a button to say, I've already built it, and then so you could, like, hey, what do you want to build, you pick these instructions, and then you hit like start, skip, and then it will just save that data, and then from that point on it should be very capable of just putting it on the RFID reader and loading the 3D video game model of the real world Lego creation. But it doesn't work that way at all. Like, I'm not even sure, I didn't test it, I'm not even sure at the beginning, and I'm talking really at the beginning before you've even built the portal, the Lego Dimensions portal in the game. I'm not even sure if I put a different character on the reader, if it would let me play that first section as a different character. So Lego Dimensions, and this is only slightly video game related, it's video game related to an old video game. It has a lot of cool stuff. It's got like Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Batman. Well, Batman is one of the original characters, so that's a bad example. But there's a secondary Batman character, some Batgirl, Powerpuff Girls, Doctor Who, Portal. So many like tie-in things was the whole idea. If you are just a huge Doctor Who fan and want to play the Doctor Who level, you can't do that until you play the first level. And for me, since this is really just going to be, since really what all I'm doing is setting it up so that my nieces and nephews can play with it, like, I'm going to have to play the game through the first bit and hope everything will work then, and then I'm gonna have to go through what is, I own like half of the entirety of the collection. I have all the levels and everything, and they added the hire a hero function, so honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I was buying these sets to actually have the actual Legos, it would make a lot more sense to use the hire a hero function, where you just rent out characters and you don't have to actually own them.
Time's up.
I imagine Lego Dimensions, if it ever gets remastered and resold, would probably completely not work with any actual Lego characters. It'd be revamped to not use the RFID reading portal at all, which probably would ruin the game. So yeah, I've got more work to do. Meanwhile, looking, although I can put that off for quite a long time. October started, Halloween month is here. I hope people watch and enjoy the Halloween month. I do kind of question, certainly, the idea of what was I gonna say? I question my thought of doing an entire Halloween month of spooky content. When you look at the TV industry, which is what I often look to try to base my channel and how it does things, I don't know why, because the TV market is sort of a failed market these days, and it's not really getting new and younger viewers. But when you look at TV, fall is the beginning of a whole new seasons of shows. But then again, their shows go for at least a third of a year, whereas my series tend to only take about a month, and I don't know how I could really break it down to make it go longer, although doing 30-minute episodes on particularly long games might accomplish that. So all of October should be good, but more and more it does definitely seem like the November is going to be pretty sparse as far as content. This is a slow game, but it seems like it's gonna work. And December, I had this thought about December. I was thinking, and this probably would never play over. I don't think I have the comedy chops to pull off this joke, and I don't know if it would work well, because it frankly is gonna come off as offensive. But I'll throw it out here. If you think about, of all the gods that are in video games, like you have the Greek gods in God of War, and you might have a few games that do like the Viking gods, and maybe a few games that do Roman gods. And then there's certainly some games out there that make up their own gods. But by far the most commonplace god of the few gods that are ever mentioned, because it's not a big issue that comes up, certainly, or at least it doesn't seem that way. Yeah, Cthulhu is by far the biggest god, or old god, in the video game mindset. So I was thinking doing a series of Cthulhu focused games on December, because you can't really do Christmas. Like, there just aren't enough Christmas games out there that are good. There are Christmas games, certainly, Christmas themed versions of cell phone games, but they're not good. I tried that already, that failed. Honestly though, I don't think I could do Cthulhu games that are that good either, because generally speaking, people who are the game makers who in general are obsessed with Cthulhu stuff, they don't make good games either. Like, so yeah, I don't think that there's any kind of theme to go either way in that direction that would really work, and it would definitely insult somebody, even if I tried to do it in the most comedic way possible and gentle way possible. Heck, the description there probably offended somebody.
Beetleberries, my favorite.
But yeah, a Happy Cthulhu Miss or something was what I was thinking of doing. But yeah, that too is probably not the right thing to do. In the end, I think December is going to have a few extra episodes, particularly between like Christmas Day and New Year. It's just going to be a wrap up of things, an end of the year review, a looking at the wish list. Maybe I could do like a video every day if I had more time. Like that is a thought. Like maybe next year I could say every day I'm gonna look at my wish list for a sort of a small amount of time, and we're gonna look at these games and filter through them. And see, the issue there more than anything would just be keeping the wish list consistent throughout that entire process, because the Steam wish list has a tendency to move things around. So like we'd have to go probably in alphabetical order. Heck, and that actually would work pretty nicely. If I look at all the games that start with the A on the wish list of Steam, and then, but that means there certainly would be days where there are games that don't start with like Z or X. Yeah, video games in particular, though, that would be less of an issue than a lot of people would think.
Free me.
Alright, let's start talking about games. I think I'm gonna get on a win streak. A win streak playing Warlock. I may have to spend some extra time just playing today. Just after I've gotten the daily quest done. We still got a lot of games to talk about. Yeah, there's a thought to be had there to try and do. If it's the song is the 13 Days of Christmas, if I went through like one letter, I could probably get at least 13 videos of, and just back end it so that it ends at before December 25th or on December 25th, or December 24th. That might be a good point to end it, and then have only an end of the year video on December 31st, and have just kind of nothing extra done between Christmas, because I imagine Christmas to December 30th is probably a very hectic time, and very few people are going to be watching YouTube, although a lot of that really just depends too.
In the light's name.
I would have to really wrap my head around how many people can travel and watch YouTube. Like, are there kids, are there adults that are sitting in a car traveling or sitting on a plane traveling that could watch my YouTube videos at that point and appreciate it? How many people are not traveling for Christmas or the holidays and they're just bored and they're going to watch YouTube? The weather being cold and snowy, generally speaking, depending on what hemisphere you're in, they very possibly, that limits people going out and doing many other activities, so they can get that advantage of potentially getting more people to watch.
In the light's name.
But I don't know really what to do or how to do it. I guess it's again comes right down to the idea of I should just bring my channel back into line of things I would do or I'd like to do, and get further away from the idea of, well, I think I should do this because this will get me more subscribers or this will get me more viewers. I need feedback clearly though. Like, how much, what, if any, special videos should I do on December this year or next year? As far as November, I don't think we're really going to do too much. Although I might, if I can find enough time and energy, I might decide to do that Never Gonna Play It November and play Super Meat Boy. Or see how far I can get in Super Meat Boy before I give up. Because that is a game that's just always hanging over my head, where I'm not really gonna probably play it. Anyways, I said we needed to start covering games about 10 minutes ago. Let's start. We've got a game on Steam called Smart Factory. It says it's a third-person action-adventure game with realistic scenes and exciting process. The players in an abandoned factory can open the box using a sword as a weapon. Yeah, this is an asset flip game. Like, low effort game, you can tell they didn't even bother to give it a interesting story that's trying to sell itself on.
I wonder.
Can we do this? And then this. Smart Factory is $13.99 with no discount. The main character you're playing as is what looks like an asset flip robots running around.
We have many secrets.
Says it's single player. It doesn't seem like the enemies are any different or the other characters are any different. The idea of a robot running around with a sword doesn't make a lot of sense.
The power is here. You need only to
a low effort game. And I didn't do a ton of cleaning up of the list, so there's gonna be a decent amount of bad games. Alright.
It's playtime.
I'll get right on.
There goes. Oh, I guess I wasted his counterspell on kinda nothing. Let's go ahead and kill that. Next game we have on Steam is Hinta Erotic Puzzles. Again, a low effort game. You can just tell by the name. It seems like it's a match 2 puzzle game. When you make a match, it reveals images, both a mix of probably stolen animated images and at least one real looking image.
Need a key?
And one thing I'd say about these images is these. Oh, that. Yeah, maybe this is animated too, it's hard to tell.
Power is here.
It's so blown out. It's so bright. Each one of these images are very objectified and zoomed in, so you're only seeing mostly the behind of characters, or the bust. So it cuts off their legs, it cuts off their heads. Basically, in the literal sense, objectifying the characters into being nothing but objects.
It's playtime. Almost out of time.
Again, just if you're gonna name yourself your game something simplistic like this, Hinta or Epic Puzzles, you know what you're selling. You're selling basically garbage. It says it has 20 levels, it's 25% off for 74 cents. We will get to later. Apparently, in the past 2 weeks, a lot of games have been kicked off of Steam for being troll games. I'm still not sure that there doesn't need to be a separate category in Steam's mind for very low effort games. Like, they don't want to draw a line on quality, certainly, and I understand that, but they kind of need to.
Power courses through me.
Because there is just a massive level of really low quality games that are getting released. Alright, next we have a game on Steam called Voltage. It says Retro Rampage for PC.
Science overwhelming.
What is this? Like, the description doesn't make any sense. What I'm seeing doesn't seem to make a ton of sense either. I'm seeing just like a lot of random assets that makes me assume this is just a random asset flip. It seems like it's a random asset flip of a game that used way more assets than even most asset flips use. There's just no visual consistency here at all. You're shooting zombies, you're in space, you're in medieval times, you're holding a gun, you're holding a mace. The graphics quality seems to drastically change. It's the description of the game is that somebody gets VR glasses and they work with his Amiga 500, and so he's like playing other games.
Well played.
I could have tried that, I guess. Alright, well, moving forward, Voltage is early access 40% off for $5.99, and it doesn't look that good. Next we have a game called Zeus Battlegrounds. It's mixed reviews, 55% of 280 users, which seems like that kind of sucks, because I would like a few more Greek god pantheon games. God of War does it, certainly, but he doesn't have to be the only one to do it. Let's see. Where are we here? Still need one more Warlock victory, and I'll stick with Zoo Warlock. But that broke my win streak, unfortunately. doesn't seem like it's a terrible idea. It's an online battle royale game where you're playing as some kind of demigod. But
Gul'dan versus Jaina.
as I think I was saying last recording,
Your soul shall be mine.
the idea of making another Battlegrounds game and it competing with Fortnite is ridiculous. Zeus Battlegrounds is free to play, but people don't like it. Let's see one negative review. I don't have time for this stuff. Let's see. It says, here's a negative review, 1.4 hours on record. Terrible controls, terrible combat, terrible graphics, poorly optimized in combat. Seemed like it was made 10 years ago. But of course you can already buy in-game currency and stuff. How about you make a proper game before trying to get people to spend money on it? Okay. So that is that for that one.
In the light's name.
Let's see, let me double check that this game is in English. Yes, it is. We have a game on Steam called Autumn Leaves. It's a visual novel in the anime style. It's English and simplified Chinese, so I assume this is a Chinese visual novel. The animation's not to the level of what you would expect from a Japanese product, but it's much better than what you would expect from a Western product. It's a slightly different style. What else can I say about it? Not much though. It's just a visual novel. It's tagged with casual RPG, visual novel, and anime. So that's basically all you can get from it. I would like to see and find a better way to describe the visual novels that are dating simulation ones and the ones that are dating simulations that go into the adult fare and have nudity and sexual content. Let's see. Oh, looking down in the description, this Autumn Leaf says more than 5 beautiful university scenes, 2 sweet female characters, dialogue of over 5,000 words, 15 minutes of game flow. So unless there was a reason to play it over and over again, you're literally paying 89 cents with it being 10% off right now for 15 minutes of entertainment. That's pathetically low. And see, that's the little problem there, particularly with like low effort, low quality games that I now have to describe this game as. Is sure, it can on the face of it seem like it's going to be the average length of a game, but it particularly visual novel senses it really only has to be 15 minutes. All they need to do theoretically on Steam is have 1 video and 5 screenshots. If you can get and clearly you can do that in 15 minutes, and that is your selling point. And for all the plugins that I've put on Steam, how long to beat will only really show up if people have played the game before, so looking at new games won't help. That it gets down to a point where you're going to have the developers of games testify to the average gameplay length or an estimated gameplay length for all the games to even have a clue on how long it's going to take. This is probably a dumb move, but I'm going to do it anyways to protect this character. Next game we have on Steam is called Tactics Rogue. It says it's an RPG take on a dungeon crawler roguelike game. I don't know. Like, I think in general, most roguelike games are role-playing games too. The two overlap pretty easily, so selling yourself as a game that does that isn't really a new idea.
So many possibilities.
Let's see. Maybe this will work. Play.
Why do you call?
And play. I should have not played this one and played this one instead. That was a mistake.
I'll get right on it.
Almost out of time. Again. Turn to get ready.
Yeah, Tactics Rogue. What to say about it? Early access, 10% off for $8.99. Its graphics don't look very good for $10. It seems a little simplistic, a little blocky. Actually, it's kind of going for that blocky Minecraft Roblox look, I think, in its characters. Speaking of Minecraft, Minecraft has sneakily announced Minecraft Dungeons as a game. It kind of looks like Minecraft Story Mode, but I imagine what it is actual, at least the trailer looks like that. I think it's probably taking the part of the part of Minecraft that some players really enjoy and some players don't, because there really is two different ways to play Minecraft, and that was kind of the nice selling point, is you could play it in creative and build, or you can play it in survival but not really focus on going for dungeons and attacking or defeating the end dragon, or you could totally always want it to be focused around the idea of fighting the nether dragon and just ending the game there. So what I would guess Minecraft Dungeons is going to be is it's just going to be all dungeons and all working towards bosses like the nether dragon, which didn't really, in my opinion, go over as well as I think Mojang thought it would be. There definitely is some different ways of thinking about it. Most of the YouTubers, most of the famous people that I've seen that do things in Minecraft really have no interest in fighting in-game bosses. There are some that will go player versus player in some ways, but usually it's, oh, we've got to go kill the nether dragon that one time for the server, and then there's really no reason to ever resummon him. And they tried to add reasons, but they never were good enough. Like, I felt like Minecraft Story Mode from Telltale worked relatively well. I think they made some weird choices in double voice acting the characters and having both a female and male voice actor record the different protagonist lines, so you basically would have had to play the game twice if you ever wanted to hear everything that was recorded.
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
So yeah, that was weird, but now that Minecraft Story Mode is dead, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do something more video game and less story focused, but where the characters kind of are more important to the story.
In the light's name.
Yeah, we'll get more information about Minecraft Dungeons in 2019. This is kind of also a bit of news that you probably haven't seen, and you probably won't see from anybody else, because it was just kind of sneakily leaked out on Mojang's YouTube page, and I haven't seen anybody else talk about it yet. I'm sure they'll get around to it.
It's playtime. Job's done.
Yeah, and I don't think there's actually a story to respond to this, but with Telltale's closing, there's a continued mainstream video game media's focus is just, oh, you should pay these employees their severance, you should pay these employees their benefits. That was new expansion, is that, oh yeah, their benefits ran out like 8 days after they were laid off, which I'm not saying is a fair or good thing. I'm just saying that happens to a lot of people. And the idea that Telltale, the obviously failed company, should somehow find money to do that is still crazy. Jim Sterling directly made a video saying that he would prefer that the entire video game industry as it is now fail, and that EA and CD Projekt Red, the makers of the Witcher 3 series, should just go out of business because their management style is bad. And at a certain level, I might be willing to meet some of those ideas halfway and say we should stop trying to push AAA games up and up in development costs, so that it doesn't become so expensive that they need to underpay their staff, and staff should have protections, and staff should form a union. The reason, yeah, let's move over to priest. Let's try combo priest. This is a good reason for them to start a union, a lot better than previous reasons when they've talked about starting a union. But there definitely is a disconnect there between people like Jim Sterling, who are saying, I am so in my own head, maybe it's not even true, he is so, at least in his own opinion, friendly with the developers of games, that he would prefer the entire video game industry to potentially completely fail, and just like make it so that no more games get made, and like everybody who likes to play video games is just left hanging high and dry, which is not realistic. It's not a smart move. It's just a dumb thought. But it also kind of gets back to the SJWs, if I'll just mention them for half a second, where they don't really buy video games. They're either getting them for free because they're writing articles, or they just don't buy or play games anyways. This accusation is thrown a lot. I think it's kind of true in cases where you have people actively saying that we prefer the employees to get paid at the cost of the entire industry failing, and then causing every other employee in the video game industry to lose their job. It's a real burning bridges thought. It gets into that similar to the get woke go broke thought, where we're gonna put a unrealistic female in Battlefield with a unrealistic mechanical arm in our trailer, and then the guy's gonna say, well, if you don't like the fact, if you don't like it for any reason whatsoever, just don't buy the game. And then surprise surprise, a lot of people don't buy the game. It's like, okay, well, you just hurt your own business and potentially the industry in total, just to die on a moral ground and stand on a hill. I'm trying to use the phrase dying on a hill. And then there's a small spin-off on this too, is people are working very hard to help the Telltale people get support financially and in other ways and get jobs, which is great. But I do have to be a little bit of a negative Nancy here and say, are these jobs that are being offered, are any of these jobs being offered, because I know a lot of them won't be, jobs that have been specifically created for the Telltale staff and were not open to anybody else who wanted to work in the video game industry? Like, is there an actual interview process and consideration based on merit that is explaining that justifies why these people would be the right person for the job? Or is it just because everybody's friend's idea? Because if it's just everybody is friendly with these people, and that's the reason why these jobs have magically appeared where they didn't exist before, that's kind of, that's cronyism is what it is. It's just not fair. Like, if you're out there and you just graduated from college and you want to work in the video game industry and you're not being allowed to send even your application to work for these new companies just because cronyism exists, that's not good. And let's take a moment and be honest here. I wouldn't be surprised of the 200 plus employees that were laid off at Telltale. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them aren't that good at making video games. Look at the engine that they've been using for many years. That's not a good engine. And I know that many people didn't want to be using that engine, certainly, and there probably are people in Telltale that are good at making games, certainly, but I bet there's a lot of bad employees in there too. I bet just like any job, you get 50% good employees, 50% bad employees if you just grade on the standard curve. So are there literally 100 bad video game developers who are getting fast passed and put into positions that were never available and never open to any thriving new talent that might have new ideas and might do things better, just because of cronyism? Like, that's my negative Nancy thought and question about people trying to help people get jobs. The first thought, of course, is you're trying to be nice, you're trying to support people, you're trying to be helpful. Everybody, sadly, in the United States needs a job. The horrible capitalistic society we live in demands it. Meanwhile, as that is the case and still going on, everyone is losing their jobs to automation. So yeah, that's my little thought there about the Telltale jobs. There is, I guess, also a side note that I saw this on CNN. It's barely video game related, other than the fact that we have other than the fact that so many video game companies take place in California. We have on the chat Uchiha Sasuke saying hello. Hello. I don't know if I Uchiha. I'm not sure how you'd pronounce that first name. The Iha is the part that sounds weird. Well, hello. CNN announced that one of the several things that they've enacted in California, I guess it's because of them going back into session, the Congress and their local government, is they're implementing a rule in California where the boards of companies in California cannot be all men. Just straight out blanket rule. If you have a board, which I think technically almost every job would, like, even if you're a small sole proprietorship, you won't have a board. But like, honestly, if you're a medium-sized to large-sized company, you probably have some kind of board. You probably have somebody who's labeled the CEO, and you have somebody who's the chief financial officer, and or something like that. So I don't know if you could get around this rule by saying we don't have a board. It's just a dictatorship run by the CEO. But I don't know how any of this is really going to get implemented. It really isn't. What's going to happen is a lot of companies in California are going to pay a small fine for not following this rule. But they passed a law where if you have a board in a California business, it cannot be all men. Which theoretically, it opens the standard standard argument of, now is every board going to have a token female who is just ignored and not listened to, and she's only there to fill a quota, and she's not going to really be qualified or be hired because of her merit? Or is this like in the segregation times of the United States, where by literally using the army to enforce desegregation, it allowed for African American children to go to the same schools and get the same level of education, which was much better than what they were getting before, and thus giving them a lot more opportunity.
I wonder.
And there are men and women both on both sides of that idea. At a certain point, like when you look at YouTube and how Susan Wojcicki is in charge of YouTube, it's not really because she's a woman that YouTube sucks and she's running it into the ground. It's because she doesn't understand YouTube culture and doesn't care about the YouTube creators. Now, it becomes a chicken and egg question. Was Susan Wojcicki hired to be a token female leader and put in charge of Google's business that probably everyone knew was never going to be able to make any profit, where she could do the least amount of damage? And she wasn't really qualified for the job. Or not, I suppose. Yeah. That is really the question. And you can always make slippery slope arguments. Will California next year pass that you can't have an all white board even if you have females? So then there has to be more minority people in charge of the board. At a certain point, you're literally taking, by legislation, you're forcing companies to be handed over from one group of people to another. You're basically stealing the entire company from its
Right away.
people who started it and decided to run it, and one would assume are running it successfully. And the law in California also says if you have more than 6 members on the board, you have to have at least 3 females on the board. So they're going for a 50-50 split. And of course, you could get into bigger arguments like how many females really want to deal with the stress of running major companies when they usually have better offers available to them. Let's see. I wouldn't certainly want to run the board of a company. Not if it was. Not if a bunch of stress was added to what I was doing. Alright, am I supposed to be playing odd or even cards? Even. So we'll play this even shaman. I should have wrapped up this recording after that last game. So I guess that's just the random assortment of news. We'll see what happens. It could be a great thing. It could be a terrible thing. Very, very few people in the United States would argue nowadays, legitimately argue that desegregation was a mistake. But there are definitely differences between enforcing that all American citizens get equal rights and treatment, and then forcing corporate entities to hand over control of their entire business to a person that they don't particularly want to do. I mean, it really does, at a certain point, come dangerously close to the fascist, what would you call it? Yeah, communism. It really is not an exaggeration to say it's a fascist communist idea to take a business away from one person and hand it to another. In many instances of that, it would have been handing it over to the government itself to take control over. And that's certainly not a phrase that I use flippantly. It's also possibly a phrase I'm not using correctly, but it's a scary, dangerous thought, certainly. Of course, I might be totally for it too. Like, if the United States was to say, we're going to take over AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile, and we're going to make that a public utility, I'd be totally fine with that, so that all internet service providers and cell phone service providers were a public utility run by the government. I'd be totally fine with that. If the government was to say, we're going to take over all the healthcare agencies, the hospitals, the insurance, everything, the providers, the drug makers, everything is just going to become a public utility, I would be 100% fine with that. If they said we're going to take over the car industry, probably fine with that too. I mean, you can't run it into the ground any worse than it already has been. it really depends, I guess, on in my opinion, of just who is actually going to do the best with it for society. Right. I think this should work. Yeah. Alright, moving on, we have a game on Steam called A More Beautiful World, a kinetic visual novel, tagged Early Access Casual Indie. This is a pencil sketch animation style visual novel, fantasy realm. I don't know if I can 100% say it looks good, but I guess it does. My unfamiliarity with pencil sketch animation style, which is not done a lot, makes it seem weird. Like, I could easily also say see myself calling it just an unfinished animation style, something that wouldn't cut the mustard normally. But I kind of like it too. It's almost like stained glass in the way that it's animated. It feels like it's doing something new. Let's see. It's in English only and it's full audio, and it says it's early access. It's 10% off for $17.99. The idea of it being full audio makes me very excited about this game, actually, because like the idea of not having to read out loud all of the visual novel stuff, and the fact that this is in a fantasy world where you're not just doing the standard anime characters over and over again, makes this really interesting. It's also being published by Sekai Project, which I've heard of at least. Seems like this developer has made several other visual novels. This one, I think, definitely does deserve being wishlisted. And I think that's probably where this is all going to fall down with visual novels in my channel, is that I'm going to find about 5 of them that are A, suitable for let's play one more game since that was too long. So that was pretty short. I'm gonna probably find 5 that are have no nudity, that's suitable for YouTube and fully voice acted, and that'll probably be the 5 that I'll play over the lifetime of my channel. There's so many other games to play too, shorter games, more interactive games. But A More Beautiful World hyphen a kinetic visual novel does definitely deserve to be on my wish list, watch list. I'm gonna stick with calling it wish list, but it really is becoming more of a watch list, at least until I can see some more reviews of it. Next we have a game called Species, Artificial Life, Real Evolution. It says it's a scientifically grounded emergent simulation of natural selections, creatures evolving, and speculate in response to in-game mutation and selection forces, allowing you to experience and tinker with evolution in real time. This looks like a Spore ripoff in a lot of ways. Not 100% sure I trust it. Yeah, this looks way too much like that game Spore. It's 10% off for $17.99. Let's see. Let's see, I'm looking at one negative review for Species saying that it's come out previous times under different builds and been free in those instances. And the game drops down to like 1 frame per second when you have over 1,000 creatures in an area.
This time.
Man. I'll take the wins. I'll take that win streak bonus, but Species is mostly positive, 78% of 23 user reviews, but it's also not very good looking, so it just doesn't interest me. If I was going to play a Spore-like game, I think I should just play Spore, and for the more cultural relevance that that game had. But I guess we'll do one more game. 9 more cards. But yeah, I don't think I want to do a spin-off of it. Next we have a game on Steam called Little Memories. It's a sliding puzzle game with cute kids puzzles instead of other things that we often see. It seems like it's mostly kittens and bears and things, and they're 3 by 3 grids. So really, a game like this, which looks like a cell phone port, just is going to come down to the price. And Little Memories is $3.99. That price is too high. Like, I don't really believe in the idea of a premium for kids games. If anything, I would say that there should not be a premium for kids games, that they should all be free.
Hello?
Like, in all honesty, just like a drug dealer, video games, the first one you get should be free. Get them while they're young, get them hooked. Also, by having a flooded market of kids games for them to get bored with and move on to, you have the ability to recoup that effort, that money later on when they're older, if you build a fan for life and give them a relatively decent experience. Alright, here's a Chinese only game called Flora, Aroma, and the Shrine. It says it's a fan fiction game. Yeah, it looks like it's an RPG maker that's doing some kind of fan fiction, probably on an anime that I don't recognize. Next we have something called San Camilo 2, which seems... I have no idea what kind of game this is. It's just showing me screenshots of what looks just like marker drawings, animation style. Like, literally this game I think is just a troll game, because it's $7, $6.99, and I cannot, apparently it's a visual novel, but there's like not a single scene of any dialogue anywhere. Let's see what this developer has made. Yeah. We made one other game that came out like April 26th and is free to play and has mixed reviews. But they haven't made a game called San Camilo 1, which is odd, certainly. mistake. I could have done one more damage. TechRaptor has an article, Fate Extella Link Special Edition fated to come along with launch in Q1 2019. So, and let's see, it will be available for the PlayStation 4 at least. And something else.
Winter is here.
Hey, catch!
Yeah, it's not much of an article. I have realized that the YouTube channel that's run by Rooster Teeth, called The Know, has referenced TechRaptor a little bit more. So TechRaptor seems like, as a somewhat small, like mid-tier video game reporting agency, they seem to be kind of growing. I suppose in the long run that's a good thing. Like you wouldn't want to see a good source of news get smaller, but also there's certainly some danger in that. I've certainly complained in the past about how Giant Bomb kind of at this point has drastically changed from what it used to be.
Chill out.
And one of the best examples of that most recently is that they are now they've announced they're going to redo like their recording studio and redecorate everything and get rid of the couch, which you'd think getting rid of the couch is not a big deal, but it kind of is, because that couch was in part a character in the whole organization. So getting rid of the couch is the equivalent of just yet another thing that is being changed. And so we'll see on what their new set looks like, but I bet it looks completely different. They've also changed their logo to just the GB in a lot of places, and they're getting rid of, they're trying to, I think, move away from using the phrase bomb, which is somewhat understandable. I mean, I'm
Free me!
unrealistic on the issues of naming your channel something
Chill out.
that can be weird or misconstrued.
Hey, catch!
Just go ahead and hit that. So yeah, I wouldn't want to see TechRaptor change too much and turn into a PC gamer or a Giant Bomb or Jim Sterling. But also I would like them to slightly expand and cover a few more topics. Also though, their channel does kind of have that PC gamer issue where sometimes the articles they're talking about are a little too long and a little unnecessary. Well, I didn't get very far in the games to cover, but we did a pretty good job here. Oh man, I still need to play one more game, and I just don't want to break the streak, so we'll play one more game to get the daily quest done, and that way I can break and switch over to the European account. There's a game on Steam called Triteka, Tritecka, the pure shooter. It seems like it's a 3D flying down the tube shooter game, but it is just full of neon, blindingly bright lights. I could not see a single thing that's going on. And around it you see some pretty boring looking interfaces. So I assume what this is somebody managed to make something cool looking and tried to make a game out of it. Let's see, it's early access, it's 15% off for $6.79. There's no way in the world I could ever play this game though. It's way too just full of distracting bright lights. It would be a very ADHD experience. Yeah, speaking of TechRaptor, they have an article, PlayStation Experience skips 2018. The YouTube channel Kinda Funny to, quote, fill the void. Kinda Funny Games is an interesting choice because it was, I believe, started with some industry insiders, and that's where it got popular. 3 industry insiders in particular, one of which happened to not be an extremely progressive left-wing SJW, and eventually that came out, and he was ousted from the company that he left, or he decided, he's made it like he decided, but certainly there was a small controversy on there. Let's see, so yeah, Kinda Funny, produced by former IGN editors and producers Greg Miller, Nick Scarpino, and Tim Geddes. Now, they've had a podcast, I would guess from the beginning of the establishment of their YouTube channel, video cast really, called PS I Love You, and they've always been very in love with the PlayStation, like way too much in love with it, like way too much in love with it when you consider that they were former editors and producers of IGN. But they would often, like almost like on a weekly basis, I think they would have hour-long conversations talking about how much they loved PlayStation. There was a lot, definitely a lot. And so yeah, it'd be weird if they stepped in and did their own thing and it became some kind of officially recognized element of the show.
Chill out. Chill out.
Let's see. I guess really what they did is they thought to themselves, heck, what could I do? This also, I guess, is something I could have done if I cared so much about PlayStation, which I don't. Like, the only time I care about PlayStation or Xbox or PC is when one of them is causing a game to not come out for the other players, and of course Nintendo consoles are always doing that. I would prefer just all games and every bit of content available for everybody, and they can play it on whatever system they prefer, and every system seems to have at least a few advantages that the others don't. But as a YouTuber, I could have said, yeah, I'll make my own podcast and we'll just fill the void. Although I don't know what you're really gonna do there. They're just gonna talk about stuff that probably has already been reported and everybody already knows about it. So it's really just gonna be, for lack of a better term that I can't think of, a giant wank fest for a PlayStation. It's not gonna have any new announcements or special things, and it really would be a giant waste of time and effort to do. Moving on, we have another one of these low-effort games called Strip Breaker Hinta Girls, which this is not even Japanese anime girls. this is cheap Western animation that you tend to see, and all this is a horrible Arkanoid clone with a girl on the side and a bar that undresses the girl as you break more of the bricks in Arkanoid. It's 30% off for 69 cents. Another extremely low effort game. And again, this is one of these games where one of the screenshots includes nudity. I think Steam really needs to get around that and fix that, because like I don't know what being delisted on Steam or not available for a region looks like, but in my mind, if a game was not available for purchase, say like Negligee is not available for purchase in Japan because it's completely uncensored, and you can't have completely uncensored things in Japan. I would ideally, if I was in Japan clicking on Steam, I would want to be able to see screenshots. I'd want to be able to see a description of the game, even if it is just going to say, unfortunately, this is not available for you there. When you start allowing the developers to put actual uncensored nudity in the screenshots, well, then you have an issue where Steam assumedly is hosting the direct images and showing those direct images to people in the countries where they're legally not allowed to see those images or show those images. So it's you're doing the thing that you shouldn't be able to do. So my only assumption is that if you tried to look up Negligee in Japan, it just doesn't show up, which is not informative or helpful. So yeah, they really need to crack down and have a family-friendly rules on screenshots, descriptions, and videos, even if the game itself has nudity and sexual content in it. And family-friendly is kind of a rough description. I mean, like the mature content description in here. It says, finish the level and unlock a new image. Each girl has 5 levels. Girl fully dressed, girl half dressed, girl wearing a bikini / underwear, girl topless, girl fully naked. I think that description probably is family friendly enough there, where that would be acceptable description. But I do think not YouTube, but Steam is going to have to look at those descriptions and verify a lot of things. Alright, we are now 30 minutes over when I should have ended this recording. We've gotten all the daily quests done, and we still have a ton of games to talk about, and I need to just speed up as we cover the European account and the Asian account. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, you can friend me on Steam, gift me a game, or support me through Patreon. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.